All right. I'm excited to be here today with my new friend, Rick Farman. Rick is the co-founder of Superfly, which is a company that is behind renowned festivals like Bonnaroo and Outside Land. They're known for their unique blend of music, art, and community engagement. And he's really been a pioneer in experiential marketing and creating immersive experiences across a variety of different domains. And I'm really excited to connect with him today. He's connected with Ari Welcome on our team, and he is like an incredible mind for creating experiences. And this is something that we found for our artists, especially indie artists. One of the most lucrative opportunities they have, and the best ways to connect with their fans, is by creating these experiences. So I'm excited to have him on the podcast to talk a little bit about his background. And Rick, I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So maybe to kick things off, for anyone who this is their first time connecting with you, could you share just a little bit of background in terms of how you founded the company and started to collaborate with festivals like Bonnaroo?
Yeah, so we've at Superfly been creating experiences for almost 30 years. It started with four of us who were college students, essentially, wanting to bring different artists to New Orleans. We were based in New Orleans. And at the very beginning, it was really around creating these event experiences around Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest time. There was some of the music that, we were really digging at the time, which was just not coming to that town. And those were big moments where people from all over the country were congregating there. And so we kind of just saw this opportunity to create event experiences that catered towards kind of these bands and the audiences that love them. And so that was sort of the initial thing that we did. At the beginning, it was kind of just a part-time thing where we're in college doing these Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest events. From there, kind of as we graduated, we started to kind of become a regular concert promoter. But the thing that really lit us up was when we could create something that sort of went beyond that was sort of a special event of sorts. At the beginning, it was just these Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest things, but then it grew to sort of other types of special event activities. And in particular, the concert series that we would do during Jazz Fest, kind of after the proper New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival that happens at the fairgrounds in New Orleans, we started to program all of these nighttime shows. And at its peak, we were selling, 30, 40,000 tickets, using lots of different types of venues from clubs and theaters, but even unique venues like riverboats. And there was an old Masonic temple that we would use there, and sort of random venues, anything we could kind of get our hands on. And we started to sort of see that there was an audience that was coming for the types of things that we were programming specifically, and there was starting to be some community around that. One of the things we did at the time is we started putting out a sampler that we would hand out to anybody who would come to the shows. So we'd hand out like 30, 40, 50,000 music samplers, and those would feature sort of up-and-coming artists. So it was a way for us to sort of, kind of turn people on to new artists that we were digging, or that, we had relationships, their, teams. And so that was kind of a cool little thing that sort of even further cemented that we were kind of creating, again, like this special event opportunity. And that was sort of the early impetus for us thinking about a festival. At the same time, we were kind of seeing what was going on with the European festival scene that was super developed. There was a lot of consolidation in the business at this time. So we were seeing a lot of sort of focus on the amphitheater experiences from the big concert players, but not really kind of the festival market. There were smaller, sort of more grassroots festivals happening. And we sort of saw this window for sort of a national festival. That was kind of the original idea behind Bonnaroo, was do something that had the scale and size that could attract people from all over the country. And that's kind of why we ended up in Tennessee, actually, because Tennessee's really in the middle of the country. The Bonnaroo site actually is about 75% of the U.S. population is a day's drive from that location. It's why, FedEx is in Memphis. It's super central. And that was a big part of what we wanted to do. We wanted to do something national. We wanted to do something that where people could kind of come from all over the country and live there and kind of create a community around celebrating a particular type of music. And it wasn't like a genre per se, but it was a little bit more of an ethos. It was like live performance, real music, very multi-genre, but like really the essence of it being that the live performance and the connection with the audience was like the primary thing that all of these artists shared. We were very fortunate that it was, a smash success at the beginning. It was powered a lot by what was just coming on at the time, which is the internet. This is really the late 90s, early 2000s, as fans were starting to use the internet to communicate people. It's pre-social media. So it's things like listservs and message boards, where people were, communicating around wanting to go to events and supporting their artists. The other thing that was happening at the time is this is when digital music was coming on. We were, literally, listening and searching for music off of Napster at the same time as sort of launching Bonnaroo on separate computers. I mean, for real, like in our office. So it was a time for music fans of an explosion of music discovery. All of a sudden people had access to way more music and in a way easier way to share it with people. And so that really sort of created a dynamic where, the idea of going to a festival with, 100 bands was really appealing because people were, making playlists and listening to lots of different stuff. And so that was sort of how Bonnaroo came about. From there, we've gone on to produce lots of different festivals, music festivals, comedy festivals, culinary festivals. We do a lot of other types of experiences, from location-based entertainment, cons, conferences, pop-ups. The most significant and relevant of which, though, is Outside Lands. And so that's an event that kind of came on the heels of us, really pioneering what was going on in the festival scene and looking for other opportunities. And one of those opportunities that we saw was that the great city of San Francisco and the Bay Area, that's got this incredible music heritage, didn't have a large scale music festival. It felt almost unbelievable to us that, like, hey, why of all places, this place should have a grand music festival. And we were very fortunate to meet our partners in Another Planet Entertainment. And back to Ari, welcome. That's how I know Ari, is that his dad, Steve, is one of the principals at Another Planet. He has this great heritage of having been part of the Bill Graham legacy, as a bunch of the other founders of that business have. And, we created a partnership with them. And here we are almost 17 years later, about to produce another iteration of Outside Lands. So we've had a great run with it. We love doing this kind of work. We love bringing experiences to people. And it's what drives us. It's our life's work.
So cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I love hearing stories like that from the very beginning of the kind of like the seeds. But in hindsight, it's one thing to kind of look at what you've done now and be like, that's amazing. And in hindsight, it's like, of course. But just hearing the beginning there, like when the seeds are planted and there's this new thing called the internet and it was blossoming, it kind of makes me wonder this where we're at right now. What are we going to look for at 15, 20 years from now? And kind of think the same thing.
Yeah, I love thinking about that too. And I think, we could talk about it whenever, but I think it's terribly exciting what to think about the future holds for us.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely get there. And a couple of things that came to mind, I would love to hear your perspective on, knowing that a lot of the folks who are listening or watching this right now are indie musicians who are looking to create a career from their music. And a big part of what they provide in terms of the service and the value of what they do is the experiences that they create, oftentimes through their live shows or bringing people together or doing things that are impactful. And so, the two big questions that come to mind based on your experience that you could bring are, one is around like the creation of that experience, like having an event that people are excited to like come out to, like crafting the event, and then the promotion of it and like getting people to come out to it. I imagine for a lot of artists who are listening to this, one of the biggest challenges is how do I actually get people to come out to my shows? It probably starts with like having something that's exciting for them to like come out to. So to start with, I would love to hear your perspective on like, what is it that makes, an event, worth attending? And what do you usually focus on when you're coming into that design space of creativity? You're thinking about how do we, create an amazing event? Like where should artists start?
Well, I think there's one central core that probably answers both questions in a lot of ways, especially for young artists. It's really community is like a really key element, community and collaboration. I think one of the things that like is really an opportunity for young artists, particularly in the live space, is to find the other like-minded artists or artists that when you're there with them, you're both bringing something to the table. And this is a tried and true thing, of course. You didn't invent this, it's been going on forever, that when you bring artists from different disciplines or different backgrounds or that have different sensibilities, but there's a commonness amongst sort of, the vibe of what they're doing, that that usually, accretes to a lot of connection and value. In our situation, like we witnessed what was going on, for instance, with the Horde tour, where they were bringing different artists from different regions together. So there were like bands that were stronger in the Northeast and bands that were stronger in the South and bands that were stronger in the West. And they would sort of trade opening slots and, who was sort of being featured. And I think, a lot of that magic happens when, musicians and creatives are collaborating. I think it's a different thing just trying to do your own show in your own town. Yeah, I mean, that there's value to that, of course, and building your own community. But I think it's a lot of what really, I think, kind of creates a snowball effect is when you're really sort of participating as part of a community, collaborating with other musicians, other bands. Beyond that, I think it's really about, thinking about the holisticness of the experience, especially in today's world where, sound and lighting and sort of, trying to create some level of, connection with the audience in a deeper way, not just a one-to-one necessarily, but trying to find some elements of things that sort of surround the stage performance and create a little bit of, visual identity or messaging about sort of what you're doing. I think those things also can really marry with what I'm saying. So, that's my experience, is like sort of thinking about like, the different elements of what your artistic being is or what the artistic being of your community is, and letting that pervade not just the stage, but also sort of all elements, obviously from your marketing, what your look and feel is, your merchandise, to other special things. I'll give one example too of something that I think is kind of like a little tidbit that we very nicely ripped from the great Bill Graham. When you go to the Fillmore still here in San Francisco, there's a big barrel of apples when you walk in the door. And when you walk out, you get a poster for, certain shows, most shows, sellout shows. We used to do very similar things. We used to give away things to fans as they came in, like a CD sampler or, some other kind of, item that kind of connected to the art. And then we would always give away posters. We wanted people to sort of put that up on their wall. We thought that was the best form of marketing, was for people to sort of, take something away from our events that they would cherish or that they would, at least kind of keep on to and hopefully put up in their homes. And so it's those kind of little tactics, I think, that at times, like, again, they're bringing things off of just the stage. It's kind of creating a little bit of a statement, a little bit of a vibe about what you are presenting that I think become very memorable for people, and I think create a deeper connection.
Awesome. Super helpful. Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is that to start with, just the power of collaboration, of finding other people that are like-minded to you, but also like diverse. It's sort of like bees cross-pollinating, where, when you have that cross-pollination, it is really like what creates life. And then you also mentioned a great lesson is that if you can create a memento or something that when people are there, It transcends, just the one-time event, but they can take it home with them, whether it's a poster or it's some sort of collectible or something they can bring with them to remember the event. And that's a great way to kind of plant those seeds.
Yeah.
Cool. Curious. I mean, we talked a little bit about like the future of where things are headed, and right now feels like a unique time. I mean, maybe it just always feels this way because we're always on the verge of like some big revolution, but it certainly feels like right now with AI and with how quickly things are evolving that we're like kind of getting ready to buckle into some like major transformation. I'm curious for someone like you that's witnessed so much evolution over the course of the last few decades. How do you view just the process of evolution as a whole and staying like, obviously you wouldn't be around for 30 years if you didn't evolve as well, if you didn't, continue to, to ride these new waves that are happening. And so I'm curious how you think about the process of evolution. And for someone that's at the time of us recording this might be witnessing some of these new waves of, generative AI, and there's fear and concern around it. Like how might they approach this in a sustainable way?
Yeah. Well, look, I think human creativity is one of the strongest forces in the universe. And so I think that everything should be looked at as a tool to put that through. And, I don't know. I look at sort of like trying to always put myself in the shoes of like, what were the people from generations before thinking about these technology evolutions, and like what was scary about them and what really, kind of played out from there. Right. And I think most of the time you've seen sort of, an opportunity for creatives rather than something that was, negative in terms of the ability to make new creations, express humanity, and to connect with people. One thing that has sort of been a hallmark for us is that we're always looking at how communication technology and sort of at-home entertainment media is sort of like a precursor to what's going to happen, out there sort of in live experiences. So I mentioned this before that, Bonnaroo was sort of being born when digital music was happening and when, kind of pre-social media internet communication was happening. And this was, really enabled us to create that. Right. If those things hadn't happened, as sort of this other world, the impact on what we were doing wouldn't have been there. And we've seen this, probably 4 or 5 cycles of this. Think about how social media changed sort of the whole, need for experiences and the desire for experiences. It sort of created this crazy duality where people want experiences because they're pushing back against digital experiences and the digital world, right? But they're also wanting more experiences because of the digital world, because to participate in particularly visual social media, you need to show people you're doing something. It's sort of currency in that world, right? And so that's why you've sort of seen a different type of explosion of stuff. I think currently what we're seeing is that we have generations of people that grew up on gaming. And so actually you're starting to see sort of the production of live experiences mimic that in many ways. First off, people want more agency because in a video game, you kind of can control how you move around and navigate the environment. And so you're starting to see more and more experiences where, the opportunity is not just linear. It's not just stage and audience, but it's a melding of this. Everybody's using sort of these terms about immersive experiences. To me, that's a total mimic of, game environments. And you're starting to see like the production of shows, right? You're starting to see lighting rigs and video walls, not just be on the stage. You're starting to see them surround and come out into the audience, right? And so I think it's those kind of things that, again, like if you look at where the technology is happening at home and in media entertainment stuff, you can kind of predict what's going to happen in live experience. It's a direct corollary. So when you think about AI, I mean, the piece for me that I'm sort of thinking a lot about right now and that's resonating with me is the opportunity to contextualize and personalize experiences. Because this sort of allows us, AI allows sort of the rapid iteration of content creation. Right. And I think that's going to be the case for people who are making music at home too, right? For starters, like I think people are going to be able to make way more dynamic music much more quickly. And as a quick tangent, just to go back to like some history on this, if you just think about sort of how much, like modern software, right, has and modern sort of instruments in a way, samplers, things like that, have allowed in a way, kind of ability for more people to create, right? Like, you used to really have to have a certain level of physical dexterity to create, right? Now you kind of don't need that as much, right? So people who are really brilliant creatives who are limited by this physical factor are no longer sort of taken out of the realm of people that can create meaningful music. Right. I think a lot of today's modern musicians, if they were born in the 1800s, they couldn't create what they create now. So that's what I'm saying is like, you have to look at these things as though like, they're just another set of tools. And I think most of these tools are enabling people to do more stuff. Right. So with AI, I think what it's really kind of creating is these opportunities to, create more personalized content, right? Like somebody could write a song and they could actually make a version of that song for each one of their fans almost instantly in ways that we never could have done something like that. Think about the content that you show if you're, at the level where you can have video, right? Most people build their shows where it's like one show, right? Because you use so much effort to create one show and you've got cues and all the things that you got to do to make that show. And if you're traveling, from, Austin to Houston, you can't just, oh my God, I have an idea. I want to change what my show is when I get to Houston because there's something I remember about the last time I was there. And I'm like, oh man, it'd be really cool if I could like do something that's contextual for my show in Houston. Now you can probably do that on the drive over, is like create an edit, create a contextual thing. So I think those are where the opportunities are going to lie going forward, is to sort of do things that use these tools in ways that allow for creation that never could have been made. And I think if you get yourself in that headspace, then I think the fear will go down and the opportunity will go up.
Oh, man, that's so exciting. So what I'm hearing you say is that, one, if you look at the trend of history, like there's been many times that we've sort of had this feeling of there's a new tool, a technology, it's something that's a revolution. And often it comes with, a lot of disruption and change, but ultimately it's led to creatives and people being more empowered to be able to stop doing things that were time consuming, that weren't really that as important as the creative process itself. And so you think that's one way to look at what's happening right now is, to look at it as an opportunity to express yourself more creatively. And because these tools are making it more and more simple and possible to create rapidly, that gives rise to more of an opportunity to personalize and contextualize these experiences so that they're more relevant to the specific crowd or an audience member, even maybe the individual. They might all have their own branch of experience as they're connecting to this, this one event. This is so interesting to me. And I wonder, I don't know if you ever think about this, but like, I don't know, like our individuality as it relates to like when we come together for these shows. And in the past, like we had these, just a few channels of kind of like mainstream channels. And like so much of our identities were sort of like grouped into these, 5 main like channels. And now there's this like huge distribution of all these different channels. And I also wonder like kind of like the source, like when we go to a show, it's sort of like part of what's powerful is that you do get to kind of transcend your own individuality in some ways and like come together with like a community. So do you think that like, how does that relate to these personalized experiences? On like the opposite end, I imagine like if it gets extremely personalized and it's like every single thing we do, like, we might be in a matrix where it's just like, it's just me. And it's all like, it's all me. But obviously like that seems kind of dystopian. And so I'm curious how you see this also connecting with like that wider community aspect of, creating personalized experiences that also reflect the wider wholeness.
Well, I think, as distribution channels have become, more bespoke, as you're saying, and sort of decentralized, it just means that people can kind of find their communities more easily. I mean, and that's why you've seen like, there's a bit of nichification of things. And, I think net, it's probably meaning there's more creatives, more people getting, opportunities to sort of connect emotionally with content that really hits them. Right. There's less gatekeepers. So things are, there's trade-offs within that. Obviously, we still have big megastars. I don't downplay the fact that it's harder at times for, upcoming musicians to get mind share. But at the same time, there are these direct opportunities. If you're doing something that's really great and connecting with an audience, the opportunity for that audience to find you, I think, is much greater than it was without those kind of things. Look, fortunately, we do have like some platforms that kind of are more ubiquitous than others, right? YouTube being sort of really interesting in that regard, where it's like kind of almost everything is there. And so if you're looking for something, you can find it, and if you're trying to, if you are trying to find an audience, it's at least a tool that, everybody basically has access to. So I think, all of these things, it's not 100% one way or the other, right? It's all gray. I'll give you another sort of riff on this too, which is, I think also that all the things I said before about like these opportunities to use these tools is one path, but another path is to go the other direction, right? To use like just acoustic instruments or, traditional instrumentation, to not allow digital devices at your events, right? That's actually something that's becoming a premium now. Like in a way, it's a premium to be disconnected. Think about how weird that is, but kind of what an opportunity that is in a way, right? So I think these things are like, this is the opportunity that each artist has, right? Is to sort of interpret the world, not just from what you're creating, but what you want to present to the world and the atmosphere and the context. And again, the community that you want to do that with. You can be somebody who, goes with sort of the direction of things, but also you can be somebody who says, hey, you know what, my thing's about pushing back against that or separating from that or creating a different type of, environment. And so I think it's really, for each artist ultimately to sort of just think deeply about like, how to navigate that dynamic, right? And, there's some people that'll kind of figure out how to do both at the same time, right? Like if you think about like something like the ambient music scene, right? That's almost in the middle of it because a lot of those events and experiences like require you to not have a device on you and to like, be very present. But a lot of the music is being generated, using, some of the most, progressive, music making techniques out there. So I think that, the way to think about these things, as an artist is like, hey, what is true to you? How can you think about sort of how to create the greatest connection, the one that is really true to you? I think most of the time, like if you're coming from that place, like there are other people out there that are going to feel that, right? There is an audience. It may be an audience that's smaller or bigger, but it will be an audience that like really kind of can feel that deeper connection with you because you're architecting these things. You're thinking about how to use all these tools in a way that expresses what you're trying to be creatively, what your expression is of, art and humanity. And so, I think that's really like the way to think about it, as much as possible. That's how I think about these things.
Awesome. I love this conversation. One thing that I would love to hear your perspective on is around these experiences and events and shows. I'm guessing that one of the main things that you found, or part of the reason that you've been able to create such incredible events, is because of the community and the connection that you create, not only between the artist and the audience, but also between like the community itself and the audience with other audience members. And so I'm curious, how do you help really foster this community, or maybe for an artist who is more of an indie artist and they know that they have maybe 300 or 400 people that are going to be coming to a show, and they want to create a really special experience where it's not just, I mean, maybe it is about them and about the art, but it's really about this community and connecting them with each other. What are some creative ways that they can think about, transcending the art and making it even a deeper knit community?
Yeah. Couple things come to mind. I mean, I think most artists know that you kind of have like your sort of initial champions, right? Your big time flag wavers. And I think, really like kind of connecting with them and empowering them to sort of like really create a community and like feel like, hey, they're part of you, and they have your enough connection with you to feel like, all right, like I want to do more. Whether that's like a meetup before a show, whether that's setting up a fan page, like all of those things. Early in my career, when I was more of a manager, and producing a lot of like up and coming bands, it was really stark to me. Like the band, like there's two bands that were, I won't use the names, but they were playing almost the same kind of music. Right. And there was one of the bands, their backstage after the show would be like, 100 people, like a quarter of the audience. And they knew all their fans, like they really engaged with them. And then the other band was like a morgue backstage. There was like nobody there. They weren't having a particularly good time, it usually looked like. And, it was pretty easy to predict that the band that had all these, connection with their fans, they're still around today, doing, living a great, lifestyle around the art that they create. And the other band, not so much, right? They maybe play every now and then. It's not a full-time thing for them anymore. So I think to me, like I just saw, and not every artist is social. Not every artist like wants to hang out with their fans. And that's not a requirement for making great art. But I do think like if you're somebody who kind of is willing to go there and be extroverted and you want to kind of create community around what you do, then it's that engagement with your fans that can really do that. Right. Now, the next thing I'll sort of say here is that I do think, again, that like this is where sort of tools are available to, and you can kind of be deliberate, right? I think there are some probably really cool community building things that are going to come out of AI, right? The ability for like your fans to sort of like know who they want to connect with, and the fact that they're coming in through this shared art, like I don't think there's as few things that that people want to come together on than music. Like if somebody is like, oh, into that band, it's like the ultimate icebreaker. It's the easiest way to be like, oh, maybe I'll be friends with that person because, oh, they dig that band, I dig that band. Like, oh, cool. So I think, even promoting sort of the sort of social connection between people and using some of the tools out there to sort of power that, I think we're going to see artists do some really amazing stuff with that. Now, by the way, you don't have to do that in the digital sphere either, right? Like I'll give you a funny example. One of the things I always wanted to do at Bonnaroo, we never got a chance to do it, but I always thought it'd be funny, is if we gave everybody like a hello, my name is name tag with somebody else's name on it. So you spent the whole time at the festival sort of with this thing on trying to find the other person who was there, right? And literally, like you could do things like that with just, not digital stuff, with just physical stuff, and be like, hey, give a reason for your fans to connect. Right. It may sound like a cheesy thing. It probably is, to like, hey, when you walk into a show, it's almost like, you go to like a conference, but you have some funny play on it where you're sort of enticing people to connect with each other in some way, So I think that's the way to think about it as much as possible is like, hey, how can I facilitate people kind of creating friendships, creating real connection around the fact that they are coming for my art. And that art is the connection between people, right? Like it is such a powerful opportunity to go beyond the value proposition of just your art, the value proposition of people connecting. One of the great things that's happened to us in our careers of creating events and experiences is that people have met their best friends, their significant others, their families, like lifelong things from coming to the things we do. They're so powerful, like both personally and then just for your business world, that if you can create those kind of connections. And I think art and, music is like such a grand opportunity to facilitate those things. And so the more you do that, I think the more that, your art goes beyond just this sort of connection of what your art is doing for people emotionally. It's creating a whole nother layer, again, of community and of personal connection that I think will radiate back to the value of your art.
That's super helpful. Just for context, Rick, when you mentioned having like a community platform or software that you think that there's a big opportunity for people coming together to build these communities. Just last week, we just released our software as a service called Street Team. And it's basically exactly what you just described as like the heart of why we created it. Because we think that the fact that with some of the most popular music companies in the world right now, you can't actually see who your fans are, and they can't say who each other are, and they can't talk to each other and have conversations. And community is like totally weird and like broken. And I mean, so it sounds like what you're saying, there's a bunch of gems in there, but a few of the points that I wanted to reiterate, because I thought these were so powerful, is to start with like really empowering those like street team leaders, right? Those people that are your champions, those people at the beginning that absolutely love you, and they get so much value just by the acknowledgments and by spending time with you. And so by shining a light on them and empowering them and making them feel special, it's a great way to help spread the word. And just in general, like connecting and building a relationship, engaging with your fans. That's something that's going to build the roots of your community. So when there's a storm, like the roots are deep and they're connected. Awesome. So cool. Mark, this has been a really fun conversation. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing some of the lessons that you've learned in the past few decades. And, for anyone that's listening or watching this right now and they are interested in diving deeper or connecting with your company, like maybe we have someone who's interested in collaborating on an experience, what's the best place for them to go to connect or get in touch?
Well, you can check out our website at superf.ly. No .coms, no anything else, just superf.ly. And all the basic info about what we do and who we are is there. I'm on LinkedIn and social media a bit. And so, I like helping people out too, with the time that I have. Sometimes I don't always have the time, but, a big part of my life's work, of course, is, supporting creatives. I'm not personally really a deep creative. I do some creative stuff, but my quick story around that is I realized pretty quickly that I was, not going to be a musician when I went down to New Orleans and I saw the level of musicianship, because I did start as a musician. I was like, ooh, wow, look at those guys. I can't keep up with that. And so I shifted into this mode of, creating experiences that, would, and producing things that would help, further, people learning about new music and connecting around music. And so, if people have ideas or things that they're seeing out there that, we can be helpful with, we always love to do that.
Awesome. Well, like always, we'll put the links in the show notes for easy access. And Rick, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you again for coming on the podcast today.
Likewise, man. Really fun. Thanks.